Luke chapter 13, verses 6 through 9. I'm going to read from the English Standard Version. I do believe there's a word from the Lord today, and I'm excited to share it with you. And the word of the Lord simply says, and he told this parable, a man had a what? Fig tree planted in his vineyard. And he came seeking fruit on it. And what did he find? And he said to the vine dresser, the gardener, look, for 3 years now, I have come seeking fruit on this fig tree, and I found none. Cut it down. Why should it use up the ground? And he answered him, sir, let it alone. This year also, until I dig around it and put on manure. Then if it should bear fruit next year, well, good. But if not, then you can what? I'd like to continue with our theme of reset, growing through manure. Just reading my Bible. Growing through manure. The fig tree is going through a difficult time. Simply put, the fig tree was planted with a purpose by the owner of the vineyard. The purpose was that the fig tree would produce figs. The owner became frustrated with the fig tree because the fig tree stopped or never did produce any fruit. And the owner is now ready, out of his frustration, for the fig tree to be dug up and made into ashes. He's given up on the fig tree. However, despite the owner's discontent, the gardener still has hope and a plan for the fig tree. As a matter of fact, this should kind of let us know that just because your life has been in shambles does not mean that there's no hope and that God does not have a plan. No matter how bad it gets, the story is telling us that there is still hope and God still has a plan for you. If you woke up this morning, if you're able to hear this message right now, if you're able to receive what I'm saying to you, it's because God is not done with you. Tied to this divine plan is the reality always that God just wants to get the glory out of your life. If the fig tree had started producing fruit the first year, then the owner could have taken credit for the fig tree. It was his great idea. If it would have grown fruit the second year, then it could have been blamed on the environment. The first year just wasn't a good year for the environment to be conducive for fruit productivity. But now that the third year has passed, we are in a but God can only make it happen moment in which if anything moves forward, it's because God did it. If it only started producing fruit because of the will and expertise of humans, then God would not get all the glory. And so God waits until we're about to get dug up, thrown away, till people who were rooting for us have given up on us. God waits until somebody says, he ain't never gonna change. God waits until some of the folk ain't even praying for you no more to say, give me a chance. Jesus says, let me work. Let me create a but God moment. In the text, the owner of the vineyard had a reason to be very upset because for 3 years this plant was wasting soil. This suggests that the soil was not the issue since the other plants were thriving and productive. Other plants were sprouting beautiful leaves and producing fruit. Other plants were demonstrating that the fig tree was actually planted in a good place but wasn't producing. This fig tree was not bearing fruit despite having good resources. It can't be the gardener's fault because the gardener had proved his skills with all the other plants. Have you ever felt like this fig tree? You were rooted in an environment and watching everyone else grow, bloom, produce fruit while your limbs remain barren. You looked to the left and the chrysanthemums had blossomed and were beautiful petals and they were flowing with sweet nectar. You looked to the right and the grapes were growing on the vines and people would come and pluck them off and eat them and talk about how good they taste while they looked at you and said, what's wrong with him? You look and see the Jones family has a new house. You look and see that Brother Brown just got a great promotion. It seems everyone is planted in the same soil you are, from the same community you are, but for some reason you aren't being fruitful and reaching your potential. You begin to feel like a disappointment, an underachiever, like I'm just wasting my talent, wasting my time, wasting my energy, and look, people have given up on me. What is wrong with me? I feel deficient and inadequate. I cannot produce fruit and I feel ashamed. They are growing in their faith, but I'm growing in doubt. They are preparing and serving the King, but I'm wondering what the Lord will do with me. Their family is prospering while mine feels like it's living in hell. Can anybody relate to the fig tree and what it's like to have manure all around you and you're trying to grow? For 3 years, this fig tree stood in the vineyard and tried to grow, but left with feelings of inadequacy as each season passed. Every year he worked hard to prepare for the spring, just as hard as the other plants did. Every year he was planted in the same soil, had the same gardener, but no fruit. Heard the same sermons, attended the same Bible studies, but no fruit. Listened to the same worship music, lifted their hands, came to the same altar, but no fruit. Took part in the same Lord's Supper, danced in the dance ministry, ushered in the ushers ministry, but still struggled to produce fruit. You're doing everything you know to do, but getting nowhere. You're working and praying and hoping you would be. As a matter of fact, this just stinks. The owner has lost all faith and confidence in the fig tree. This stinks. But the gardener still believed. May I suggest to you that the fruitlessness of the fig tree was a part of her process? See, we harp so much on producing fruit that we forget that if you're going to have good fruit, you've got to go through seasons with no fruit. May I suggest to you that fruitlessness is a part of God's process. Seasons of fruitlessness are often just a setup for greater fruit production. That's why we need God's grace, because all of us will have seasons where we need the Lord to step into our situation. He says, let me dig around, put some manure on it. Let me do a work around the roots and put some, what? Life already stinks for this fig tree. But the gardener's getting ready to add some more stank to the fig tree in order for the fig tree to grow. The gardener believed in the ability to grow the tree, but chose a very specific method for growth and maturation. Something that others could not see because, watch this, manure is just waste to other people. Manure is something other people just want to discard and get away. Manure, stinky, don't step in it, don't get it on your clothes, filthy manure. God grows us through the funk of manure. Watch it. The gardener starts digging around the roots of the plant, and then look, the gardener literally applies the stinky stuff to the most important part of the plant. When you give God access to your life, God takes stinky stuff and uses it as fertilizer to grow you and mature you. During this consecration, some of the vulnerability and the discomfort you are experiencing is because God is exposing your roots and then putting some stuff to them that you don't think will help you because you don't understand the chemical composition and the purpose of the stank that God has for you. But if you can get through the smell, because here it is, the gardener knows what he's doing. Notice the gardener's confidence. He does not say, put trust in the fig tree. He's saying, put trust in me. Because I know what the fig tree needs. And if we're honest, the fig trees, those of us who are fig trees, all of us are fig trees. We don't really know what we need. And when the stank of the manure shows up, we begin to question, how in the world can this be for my benefit? I just lost my good job. How in the world can this be for my benefit? They just gave me a bad prognosis. How in the world can this be for my benefit? My child is acting up, or my teacher is cray-cray. How can this be for my benefit? Because I feel ostracized and isolated and things aren't going my way. And God, by the way, you didn't answer my prayer the way that I prayed it. I asked for growth, not for manure. But it's the stinky stuff in life that helps you grow. That stinky relationship, stinky job, stinky government, stinky stuff helps you grow. Tell somebody, stinky stuff helps you grow. Stinky. The key here is making sure that it's the gardener who's adding the manure. We'll go there next week. God uses some of the strangest things, roughest circumstances, painful failures, and weirdest incidents to forge our destinies. He uses our troubles as fertilizer to grow us, our failure as teaching aids to help us, our mistakes as opportunities to love us, and he uses our pain as motivational tools to fuel us. God has a way of helping us bear fruit through manure. The problem is you have to be willing to expose your roots and withstand the smell. And you have to, watch this, deal with the fact that there may be a season where people just associate you with the smell. Some people would distance themselves from you because they can't handle your process. Let me keep going. There is a lot of stinky stuff in this text, and I just need a few more minutes to really show you how stinky it was for this fig tree. The fig tree's life stunk way before the gardener applied this application in the 4th year. Can I prove it to you? It's right in the beginning of the text. The text reads, a certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard. That was stinky. You don't see it? Let me say it again. A certain man had a fig tree planted in a vineyard. Okay, let me unpack it. Fig trees don't belong in vineyards. Grapes are grown in vineyards. In first century Palestine, which is the context, vineyards were carefully cultivated for grapes, not figs. Vineyards were costly, valuable assets. It was important to the economy. Fig trees were typically planted along property lines, in gardens, or in open fields, because you did not want the fig trees taking away the nutrients from the grapes. So this fig tree, because of the owner's desire, was planted in a place that culturally it wasn't even supposed to be. Woo. Watch it. The fig tree would feel like I don't really belong here. This is not my environment. This is not where I thrive. This is not where I belong. Notice it's a fig tree. There's nobody else here that looks like me. Am I in the text? This stinks. Sometimes the Lord is going to position you in places that you feel like you do not belong. You will wonder, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? Nobody looks like me. Nobody talks like me. Nobody believes like me. I must be in the wrong place. God, get me out of here. I keep applying for new jobs. I keep searching for new friends. And I think it's turning up. Why am I in a vineyard when I'm a fig tree? He could have placed him anywhere, but he chooses to put him in his vineyard, in a place full of grapes. And maybe, just maybe, a part of our issue of not being able to produce fruit when we are in places that we feel like we don't belong is because we're spending too much time trying to produce grapes when we're really a fig tree. Can I make it plain? If all you see are grapes around you, you begin to try and conform to the identity of a plant that does not support your anatomy, your genealogy, or your theology. In other words, the way my mama used to say it, you starting to act like them folk. And not who we raised you. You a fig tree. Why are you trying to grow grapes? And looking at the text, you could also conclude that the vineyard had preceded maturation and was already in position before the fig tree was positioned there. Which means you're put in an environment that already has a culture, already has systems in place, already has a mode of operation, already has things and protocols for how nutrients get to where they've got to go. And now you've got to adapt as a new person to an environment that you don't even fit in. But your location might just be the manure you need for your growth. Oh, you may feel like you don't belong, but this is where you're going to grow emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. God does it over and over again. Joseph in Egypt, Moses in Midian, Esther in the Persian court, Daniel in Babylon, David in Saul's court, and a man named Jesus. God lowering himself, taking on flesh to dwell among us. A place where we would say, God, you don't really belong here. And the Pharisees got upset with Jesus because he kept showing up where they felt like he didn't belong. You don't belong eating with sinners. You don't belong with the tax collectors. You don't belong healing people on the Sabbath. But you don't get to tell God where God belongs, because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and God does whatever God wills, because God is sovereign and God can do what God wants to do when God wants to do it, and God can send you where God wants to send you and plant you even in vineyards. God often places us in spaces with faces that make us feel like we do not belong. I'm a fig tree in a vineyard. Why am I here? What purpose do I serve? I'm a fig among the grapes. Why am I at this job? I'm out of place based on my ethical and spiritual standards. Why am I at this school? I have different values that cause me not to fit in with my peers. Maybe you got promoted, and now those who are your peers are now your subordinates, and they talking about you, scrutinizing and undermining you. That stinks. Maybe you're an older person surrounded by younger people, or a younger person surrounded by older people, and you feel out of place. It stinks. You're a woman surrounded by men, or a man surrounded by women, and you feel like you just don't belong. But I came by to tell you this morning, what seems like human misplacement is often divine placement. You have not been misplaced, you've been positioned. And God does not always place us where we fit. He places us where we can grow, where he can get the glory, and where we can become participants in changing the entire aesthetic of the vineyard, shift the culture of a nation and the mentality of a people. Why am I here? I'm here to grow through the stink. Why am I here? I'm here to change the very environment, because once a fig tree is placed in a vineyard, the whole landscape looks different. The whole atmosphere shifts, and it causes people to stop and question, why was this done? Why am I here? Here's the big point: because God has a plan. You are trying to be like everyone else, but just be like God has called you to be. Can I prove to you one other thing here? To really understand the significance of this year and the fig tree, you've got to go back to Levitical law. You've got to go back to Leviticus chapter 19, verse 23 through 25. Can I read it to you? This is going to bless you, because it blessed my socks off. Here it is. When you come into the land and plant any kind of tree for food, then you shall regard its fruit as forbidden. 3 years it shall be forbidden to you. It must not be eaten. And in the 4th year, all this fruit shall be holy, an offering of praise to the Lord. Historically, this came out of the context of the children of Israel, who during their journey through the wilderness had to eat manna supernaturally produced by God. Now they're pivoting because they're in the promise. But the Lord wanted to make sure that they did not get complacent in believing that the fruits came because of their work. See, when you were in the wilderness and God had to supernaturally put food on the table, you understood your dependency on God. But all of a sudden, when you got your trees and you got your Sam's Club and you've got your Piggly Wiggly and you've got your Publix and you got your Walmart and your Costco and you've got your Amazon that delivers each and every time you need something, you can mistakenly become complacent and miss the fact that you have what you have because of the goodness, the mercy, the grace, and the power of God. When you have had a vineyard that has been producing, you begin to have an expectation and entitlement that fruit will happen. When you're used to getting a paycheck, you don't necessarily thank God every time you pay the light bill. When you're used to seeing the sun rise every morning, you don't necessarily thank God that the sun rose this morning. When you're used to going to your closet and figuring out what you're going to wear, you don't necessarily thank God as you putting one leg in and another leg. When you're used to being able to walk, you don't thank God that you have been walking. And what the Lord is saying to them is, now that you can plant your own fruit, now that you can plant your own trees, I need you to take on the discipline of not partaking of it for just a few years so that you'll remember that the only reason why you have fruit is because I'm a big, good old God. Look at the text. So the owner of the vineyard is upset about fruit that if he was living according to this, he would not have been eaten anyway. Fruit in this Hebrew here, a weird word is used for it. It literally means uncircumcised flesh, unclean lips, hardened hearts. The fruit isn't sin, it's just not consecrated yet. The early yield is good fruit, but it's not ready fruit. You can be good, but not ready. You can be good at what you do, but not consecrated and set apart for the Lord's service. You can be eloquent at your speech, but not consecrated for God to use you to preach. You can have a beautiful voice, but not consecrated to sing. You can have a heart of service, but not consecrated to be in leadership yet. You can I talk about it? You can want to be a father, want to be a mother, want to be a spouse, but not be set apart to do it in a way where you're serving the Lord. And that's what God works on in those years where we're frustrated because there's no fruit. God was teaching Israel to reset their appetite. You plant a tree, you wait, but you don't touch it even though it produced fruit. You walk through the grocery store doing the temple cleanse consecration. You got the money, you could get it, but you don't. You see the hot and ready light is on. You see that somebody said they wanted to bless you. But during this time, it is about consecration because consecration must come before consumption. Fruit exists. Fruit is restrained from being partaken. Fruit is offered. Fruit is enjoyed. That's the order. And so here it is. Early pruning creates long-term growth. Delayed harvesting increases a long-term yield, which means what the Lord was doing was both theological, but also natural. He was saying, if you can discipline yourself to not partake for the first 3 years, and you can discipline yourself so that the fourth year you give it as worship to me, then in the 5th year, I'll bless you in a way that makes you glad you gave up the first 3. Because what this is teaching us is you don't live off the first thing that grows. Notice, the fig tree was not productive, but the owner somehow was still living. The owner was still doing his thing. The owner still had a vineyard. And everything else must still be doing fine in the vineyard because the owner did not make a comment to the gardener to tend to anything else but the fig tree. He did not say that the grapes aren't as good anymore. He did not say that money has gone down in business because of this fig tree. He was just upset because the fig tree was not producing, but it was not time for the fig tree to produce. New growth must be consecrated before celebrated. Numbers before formation lead to collapse. Expansion without reset produces weak fruit. Delay is not denial. Sometimes it's just discipline. Here it is, and I'm closing. There is an interpretation of this text. One of the ways of the many that we will talk about as we walk through it over the weeks. There's an interpretation of the text that says that it is possible that the landlord was an absentee landlord who would only show up when it was time to collect the fruit. Watch it. And the gardener was the one really doing the work, which is clear. And what frustrated the landowner was that he would come with the anticipation of seeing fruit, come already counting his chickens before they hatched or spending his money before he got it, and then would see that there was no fruit, and it frustrated him to the point because the fig tree was bad for business. But there's an interpretation that says that maybe the owner was not spiritual and was a pagan and did not understand the blessings that are tied to Leviticus. And so the gardener, understanding what the owner didn't, actually cut and hid the fruit. Notice the text. This is why it's interpreted that way. I have come seeking fruit on the fig tree and found none. Doesn't say that there never was. He just didn't find it. Which means the gardener who knew what was best for the land, for the plant, and the owner was moving on their behalf, trusting and following God, was cutting away and hiding the fruit, because if you partake in this fruit now, you're going to miss your blessing later. And there are some things I know you've been praying about, that you've been hoping for, and you're asking God, it didn't happen last year, it didn't happen the next year, it didn't happen 3 years. God, when is my time? And it may be that in actuality, you are producing fruit, you just can't see it. You are producing fruit, others just can't see it. It's not time for you to operate in it. It's not time for you to partake in it. Watch this, but in due season. In the text, the owner may be getting blessed because he's got the right gardener. And I need to check in on you this morning, Mount Moriah. Do you have the right gardener? Do you have the right man named Jesus who is tending to your garden? Do you have the right gardener who's telling you what to do to keep your mind sane? Do you have the right gardener who's keeping you from things that you want now, but it's in your own best interest? Do you have the gardener who can spread the right kind of manure around you and somehow take that which is stinky and use it for your good? Do you have the right gardener who works all things for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his plan. Do you have the right gardener who was hung high and stretched wide, hung his head and gave up his life? Do you have the right gardener? If you have the right gardener, then here's what I need you to do. You need to understand that when your season does come, after 3 long years, and you have that 4th year, and the gardener's gone to work, he's given grace that's sufficient, and now you're producing fruit, and now you can hold on to that fruit. Let me tell you, the 4th year still is not a year for you. The 4th year is a year of thanksgiving and praise to the Lord. All that fruit you give back to God. All that fruit you say, thank you, Lord. He was working on my praise all 3 years. He was working on my faith all 3 years. He was working on my fasting all 3 years. Now I trust him. Now I believe in him. Now I tell you, for God I live and for God I die. I've made it through the flood. I've made it through the fire. I've made it through Trump 1.0. And I'm going to make it through 2.0. For I've never, ever seen the righteous forsaken, nor their seed begging bread. He won't let us down. He won't let us fail. I'm pressing on the upward way. New heights I'm gaining every day. Can I get a witness? Grow through manure. Grow through the pain. Grow through the heartache. Grow through disappointment. Grow. Reset. Grow. 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 Tell somebody, grow my brother, grow my sister, through the stink, through the manure.